It also greatly reduced state expenses in housing and caring for convicts. For the corporations, convict lease provided droves of cheap, disposable laborers who could be worked to the extremes of human cruelty. It says every southern state leased convicts, and at least 9/10 of all these convicts were black. In reports of the period, the terms convicts and Negroes are used interchangeably. Of those black Americans caught in the convict lease system, a few were men like Henry Nisbet, who murdered 9 other black men in Georgia, but the vast majority were like Green Cottonham, the central figure in Blackman's book, who was snatched into the system after being charged with vagrancy. Okay? Or vagrancy, the crime of just being unemployed. It says a principal difference between antebellum slavery and convict leasing was that in the later, the laborers were only the temporary property of their masters. On one hand, this meant that after their fines had been paid off, they would potentially be left free. On the other, it meant that companies leasing convicts often absolved themselves of concerns about workers' longevity. Such convicts were viewed as disposable and frequently worked beyond human endurance.
Right, and once again, that's no marvel, man. I mean, our people were put in a position where the so-called white man ruled over us with an iron fist. No matter what you did, no matter how well you did it, you still was put down to the bottom of the fucking rung, man. You know, that was merciless. Let me get this real quick. This is from history.com. It says, 5 things you may not know about Abraham Lincoln and slavery and emancipation. It says on September 22nd, 1862, Abraham Lincoln issued his preliminary Emancipation Proclamation, explored 5 facts about the 16th U.S. president and his policy on slavery. And it says, number 1, Lincoln wasn't an abolishist. It says, Abraham Lincoln did believe that slavery was morally wrong, but there was one big problem. It was sanctioned by the highest law in the land, the Constitution. The nation's founding fathers, who also struggled with how to address slavery, did not explicitly write the word slavery in the Constitution, but they did include key clauses protecting the institution, including a fugitive slaves clause and the 13th 3/5 of a man clause, which allowed southern states to count slaves for their purposes of representation in the federal government. In the 3-hour speech in Peoria, Illinois, in this fall 1854, Lincoln presented more clearly than ever his moral/legal and economic opposition to slavery. Then admitted he didn't know exactly what he should do about it, but cruelly was in currently it was in a political system. And I'm gonna go on to jump down to number 2. It says, Lincoln didn't believe blacks should have the same rights as whites. Now, this was after the so-called Emancipation Proclamation. Okay? It says Lincoln didn't believe blacks should have the same rights as whites. It says, though Lincoln argued that the founding fathers' phrase, all men created equal, applied to blacks and whites alike, this did not mean he thought they should have the same social and political rights. His views became clear during the 1858 series of debates with his opponent in the Illinois race for U.S. Senate, Stephen Douglas, who had accused him of supporting Negro equality. In their 4th debate at Charles, Illinois on September 18, 1858, Lincoln made his position clear. Quote, I will say then that I am not, nor ever have been in favor of bringing about in any way the social, political, or equal equality of the white and black races. He began going on to say that he opposed blacks having the rights to vote, to serve on juries, to hold office in any intermarrying with whites. Okay? So if you make a man free and you make a man equal, he should have the same things that you have. But he said he highly opposed that there was interracial marriages. He opposed that blacks having the right to vote, blacks being on the jury, blacks holding any kind of office. What he did believe was that, like all men, blacks had the right to improve their condition in society and to enjoy the fruits of their labor. Now, how was that? How are you going to improve your way of life and your fruits of your labor when you had to go to the so-called white man to gain your fruits, man. The so-called white man wasn't trying to give you a goddamn thing so that you could surpass him. So your shit was limited. Your ability to do anything was limited, man. And Abraham Lincoln knew this. He knew this. And it says, blacks had the right to improve their condition in society and to enjoy their fruits of their labor. In this way, they were equal with white men. And for this reason, slavery was inherently unjust. Likewise, his views on emancipation, Lincoln's position on social and political inequality for African Americans would evolve over the course of his presidency. In the last speech of his life, he delivered on April 11, 1865, he argued for limited black suffrage, saying that any black man who has served in the Union during the Civil War should have the right to vote. Okay? Point number 3. Lincoln thought colonization could resolve the issue of slavery. And it says, for much of his career, Lincoln believed that colonization, or the idea that a majority of the African American population should leave the United States and settle in Africa or Central America, was the best way to confront the problem of slavery. So though he so-called free slaves, he said, but there was still a problem. You know, if you're the president of the United States and you have the right to free slaves, why would you consider them a problem, man? Why would you consider saying, all right, we're going to let him go, but we got to send him back to Africa? Because he's a devil, man.
That's right.
He's a devil. And like the brothers mentioned earlier, you're making heroes out of people that don't deserve to be a fucking hero, man.
That's right.
The so-called white man's a devil,
That's right.
and there's no way around it, man.
That's right.
He's a deceiver. He's a liar and a deceiver.
That's why the tribe of Gad said that this devil speaks from the fourth tongue.
That's right. So continuing on, it says, his 2 great political heroes. Now this is Abraham's 2 great political heroes. It says Henry Clay and Thomas Jefferson had both favored colonization. Both were slave owners who took issue with aspects of slavery, but saw no way that blacks and whites could live together peaceably. Lincoln's first political advocacy for colonization in 1852 and in 1854 said that the first instinct would be to free all slaves and send them to Liberia. Okay? So that was his first instinct, to free slaves and to send them to Liberia. So this is why when you see this thing here, it was known that because just because we give you the title of free, you are not free. We're gonna round and bind you up and ship your ass out of here, man. But how are you able to enjoy the fruits of your labor and to live as all other men when they're putting restrictions on you? But that's the so-called white man, the devilish shit that he does. Yeah, go ahead, brother.
The word emancipation in its original form does not mean freedom.
Right.
It means to transform.
Right.
To
One master to another.
To the other.
Right.
It's original.
Right. But that's it. Go ahead.
It still means to transform.
Right. Right. Read the definition. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
The etymology of emancipation is from the Latin emancipium. Probably, yeah. Emancipare. That's after. And then it goes to say early 17th century from the Latin emancipare, transfer as property.
Mm-hmm.
That's verb.
Transfer as property. Okay? It's because them slaves that were moving from the south coming to the north, okay, you still was under strict subjection by the so-called white man. If you didn't fight in his wars, he found that there was a crime. There was a crime being committed. Go ahead, read it on that. So let me read that again. It says Lincoln's first publicly publicized advocacy for colonization in 1852 and in 1854 said that his first instinct would be to free all the slaves and to send them to Liberia. The African state founded that the African state funded by the American Colonization Society in 1821. It says, let me get down to 4. This is 4. Now, emancipation was a military policy The Civil War was